What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here, alongside Josh Davis. Welcome to the 2024 NFL Draft Eve show, as we are basically one day away. We are 24 and a half hours from 8 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, Thursday night, for round one of the NFL Draft. Josh, it feels like Christmas Eve. I told my fiance that at dinner tonight. She laughed. She didn't think it's as significant as Christmas Eve, but to you and me and everyone watching, it feels just like Christmas Eve.
You're right. Yes, it depends on who you are, but to us and to a lot of people that are just raving over the NFL draft, the nights and weeks and months, honestly, of it trying to get here, it's weird because it's gone by quickly. But like we've said before, it's like there's lulls of it where it's slow, but for some reason, I don't know, this year more than others, maybe with the news and the drama and everything else we had going on during the offseason, it sped along. But yeah, it's the fact that it's here tomorrow. It's going to be a blast. Shout out to everybody in the chat if you haven't already hit the like button. But we are going to have an amazing time. And kudos to you. I'm sure we'll probably talk about it. People are going to see it tomorrow as well. But like, I'm just so hyped because this is going to be unbelievable what's going to take place during our live stream. We're going to give away lots of stuff too, but like just the production, professional value, everything else there, top notch, top notch.
I appreciate that. I wanted to make this stream, and just for everyone who's watching this later, if you're not going to tune in tomorrow night, you should, because it's not just going to be your typical YouTube stream where you just see Josh and my face. We're going to have graphics, we're going to have player breakdowns, we're going to have highlights, we're going to do giveaways. It's going to be trying to be one of the best, NFL draft first round live streams you possibly could have, to where if you watch us, you're not missing out on anything, especially visually, versus watching on ESPN or any other network. So hopefully a lot of fun. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. We must still start with what it feels like a consensus, what Philadelphia is going to do, Josh. Whereas, while I think it's possible, the idea that the Eagles are guaranteed to trade up and also guaranteed to go ahead and get a cornerback is, a lot has to happen in order to have a trade partner, and the trade partner accepts the trade you want to offer, and then the player is there and available. Everything we've heard so far is that you go to 12 or 16, it's Mitchell or Arnold. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, it will for sure be. I'm do the Philly special guarantee is that it's going to be cornerback in the first round. Now, the question will be, yes, to your point, like, is it Terry Arnold? Is it Quinyon Mitchell? Is it somebody else that you trade up for? If those guys go very early, possibly. But here's the thing. We've talked about this on a number of shows, and just about every single time I've gone to DraftKings to get the updated odds, because it's like, okay, hey, corner, it's likely, right? So I'm looking at it right now. Cornerback, DraftKings updated odds is minus 145 on the Eagles to take a corner. The next closest is offensive line at plus 140. When we began doing this, offensive line was the clear-cut favorite, and I think cornerback was like plus 340, plus 350. So for it to have moved from plus 350 to minus 145 for Howie Roseman, who has never done this before, that tells you all that you need to know, regardless of, then we could get into, the reports of Howie Roseman's looking to move up in the first round, specifically for cornerback. They're bringing in Terry Arnold. They brought in Quinyon Mitchell. They brought in Cooper DeJean. All the cornerback, every big name cornerback that you can think of has basically visited with Philly, and lots of those have been top 30 visits. So yeah, it's a foregone conclusion in my mind. I've hyped myself up so much now. It's going to take place. 16 with Seattle makes a ton of sense because we can help them out. They can help us out. It's a mutual interest there. They don't need corner because they got Devin Witherspoon too. So it's not like if he is available, they're like, hang on, we want this guy. So that's what I'm hopeful for. I'll be surprised if it doesn't happen. But then the question, becomes like, it's probably a take your pick if one of them is available, like Terry Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell. There's no way both end up at 16.
Sure.
It's highly, I don't know, maybe not highly unlikely, but it's improbable still, I think, that they'll be there at 16 because they're just so good. But maybe one of them is. And if they are, I think that's an ultimate, you immediately trade up, get the guy, get your corner, and we're good to go. So I will be pumped. I'll be ecstatic. I know you'll be excited about it. I would still say Quinyon Mitchell for me personally. I know some people said Terry Arnold though, but are you in the camp of one versus the other?
I don't think it matters. I think both are going to be very good. And if you take Devontae Smith's words today, what apparently was said to, I believe it was Howie Roseman, if you want the best cornerback in the draft, you get the one from Alabama. Now, he's a little biased there. I think John Clark had that on his little Thursday or Wednesday night NBC Sports Philadelphia hit. We'll talk about it on my show tomorrow. Either way, they're both good. I still think if you take the school that they played for out of the equation, Toledo versus Alabama is a massive difference. And everyone who watches college football will say, well, Tyron Arnold played against, LSU wide receivers. He played against the top talent in the SEC. If you would have put Quinyon Mitchell on a team like Alabama in 2023, he would be the consensus best, maybe defensive player in the entire draft. At least the best secondary player in the draft. He's incredible. He has everything that you want. I compared him to Sauce Gardner on Twitter yesterday and got ripped for it, but he's very similar. And Sauce didn't come out of some major football program either. I mean, Cincinnati at the time was very, very good. They were a college football playoff team, but Cincinnati is not Alabama, right? It's not some of these other big-name places that you can come from, like Texas or USC. Toledo was very small. We understand that, but all GMs, I would say, would probably consider Quinyon Mitchell to be slightly ahead of Tyron Arnold. There's part of me that kind of hopes that Quinyon, and this is a very, very small part of me, Quinyon were to go at 12. Philadelphia is unable to get him. That way you land Arnold, and then everyone just hops on the SEC train, because I do think you're going to have some people get a little upset if you go Toledo versus Alabama in terms of a trade up. But overall, you can't go wrong with either one of them. My one question, though, Josh, everybody keeps saying corner. There's no chance that this is a smokescreen, right? There's no way that they want Verse or they want Latu or they want Dallas Turner if they go up to 12, right?
No, I just can't envision that. There's just no way. There's. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say no way, because every once in a while you're trying to throw people up, but it's too obvious. And this one feels maybe not as obvious as Jalen Carter, right? Because like that one was a for sure. Last year it's like, okay, automatically we're just gonna, it's a given. It falls in line perfectly. The pro day, the issues that he struggled with there, it's just a seamless fit. So that was a foregone conclusion. This one feels very likely, maybe not to that extent, but the only way in my mind is if those two guys, again, Quinyon Mitchell, Tyron Arnold, are not available, then you say, hey, maybe Latu Latu, maybe Jared Verse, you trade up in that and get them on that side. But I'm with you. You got to go corner. Actually, Teddy asked here, what's your record? Because I said it was a guarantee, but what's your record when it comes to guarantees? Technically, if we're counting just for the draft, because we only did this last year for the first time, I was 2-0. I had the last mock draft I did. I had Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, and we got both those. So that means I'm probably due to actually not hit it, but still, nonetheless, we're undefeated so far.
Speaking of which, in terms of the NFL draft, you guys want to get in on our NFL draft league, you still have time, and you just shoot your Venmo over to Josh, the Philly Special, and you can join our NFL draft league, where you basically try and predict all 32 first-round draft picks, and the winner is going to get a Eagles jersey of their choice, maybe of the new draft pick, or, it could be Saquon Barkley or Jalen Carter. Obviously, no one's going to get it right, so it's, kind of total aggregate in terms of how it all, spaces out. Josh has the rules up there on the website, but you shoot hit Josh a Venmo, and then he will send you the link to go ahead and lock in. A bunch of you guys are already in that league. Josh and I are in that league. I just submit my picks tomorrow morning is my plan. You can, change them until draft time, but still, get your picks in. Have some fun with us on that one. We got a super chat here from Bryce, who says, hey guys, wanted to tell you I appreciate what you guys do and our inspiration to me and my friends have started an Eagles podcast ourselves. Keep up the good work. Appreciate it. There you go, Bryce. Dude, drop the drop the name of the podcast. We'll shout it out here. Everyone, more Eagles content, the better, I would say. So congratulations, and let us know what it is. Give us a name.
Yeah. I'm very interested, actually. Unless it's Bryce Haynes, maybe I suppose I could click
the
on
Bryce Haynes show
and see. But yeah, just let us know. Appreciate it nonetheless, like Thomas said. So it's getting quite a bit of likes there as well. So that's good.
There you go. I do think the main smokescreen, Josh, is the report we saw today. I know it's from ESPN, and so you got to give it, it's due and it's grain of salt here and there, but this whole idea that they still want to trade up for a wide receiver, and that was really thrown out there big time this morning. Brock Bowers' name was also tossed in as being an option, number 22 overall. If there was ever a smokescreen, forget corner and tackle and pass rusher, they're not getting a wide receiver in round one. It would be absolutely jaw-droppingly stunning. If they draft a wide receiver and you're watching on ESPN, you have not tuned into our live show tomorrow night, tune in immediately to watch my draw hit the floor, because I will not believe if they go wide receiver, and I won't believe if they go Brock Bowers. And the only argument you have to getting a guy like a Xavier Worthy or a Brian Thomas Jr. or any of these other wide receivers is, well, eventually A.J. Brown's not going to be there, Thomas, in 2 seasons. Like, what are we doing here? I get that you need weapons, and weapons are great, but you know what the exact argument is going to be the second they take a receiver in round one if they were to do it? Oh, well, they're going to be able to score 35 points, but they're going to give up 40 points because the defense is still really bad. That, to me, has got to be the 100% biggest smokescreen that I've seen so far. But maybe Howie says, screw it. I want all the offensive weapons. Give me Saquon, give me Smitty, give me AJ, give me Dallas, and give me Xavier Worthy. I don't know.
I mean, perhaps, yeah. You know that offense wins championships nowadays. It feels like
It's
the
true.
league is certainly transitioned in that direction, but you do need somewhat of a defense. And to the point, it's like, okay, there's no way. There's no way you go wide receiver at the first. Now, this may be a little bit of a double standard because while I totally agree with that, I do believe that second round is possible for the Eagles to go
Okay.
with wide receiver, depending on who's still available. Now, it's not like a first round talent. So again, we can kind of clarify with that. So, okay, hey, you know what? You got your corner taken care of. Now you have, I think that the wordage that, or the verbiage that Daniel Jeremiah used was gluttonous of a pick, but it's still a realistic pick that you have an option there
Sure.
to go with of a receiver because yes, it's a couple years, like you said, with AJ Brown, but we talk about premium position and positional value, certainly with different picks like that. You think of, hey, what positions get paid a ton of money, especially when it comes time to get paid, right? It's wide receiver, cornerback, offensive line, which we saw a lot of wide receiver offensive line of Detroit earlier today. A fantastic job by Howie Roseman to get deals done before that takes place. But
Yep.
again, if you take back and look at it and say, okay, it might be a little bit early. You could go with some other areas, bigger holes, if we want to call them that. But at the same time, you do look at the contracts and go, my gosh, like it's only going to get higher and higher for these wide receivers.
Yeah.
And so if we don't hope this, you and I want AJ to be here for life. We want him to be an Eagle for forever. But if it does not happen, then sure, you could say, okay, if there was a Xavier Legette, if there was a Ricky Pearsall, if there was a Malachi Corley, then maybe he feels more like third round. But still, if you have someone of that type of caliber, it falls in your lap there, you say, cool, you know what, let's take him in the second round. That seems more feasible, but I'm totally with you. If you take him first round, we are all going to be shocked. We're going to be cussing Howie because it's like, you know what, trust you on some of these moves here, but did we really
Sure.
just go with a wide receiver 3 for our first round pick? That's crazy. That's outlandish.
Yeah, we'll see. Obviously, there are a couple of wide receivers who will be there. Not the top two in terms of Malik Neighbors or obviously the aforementioned Marvin Harrison Jr., but the idea of Aroma Dunze being there, obviously Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy. There are a couple, AD from Texas. There are a couple of other receivers that are going to be fitting somewhere between 10. The Jets is kind of a fall point for the top two in terms of a ceiling. And then the rest of these guys could go anywhere between 15 and, 35, essentially, with guys that need receivers like the Carolina Panthers and the Kansas City Chiefs also as well. Bryce Hayes
Mhm.
says it's called The Link Lineup, his new podcast. There you go, Bryce. Shout out The Link Lineup. If you've not
Nice.
checked it out, go ahead and find it. I'm sure you can get it where you can get most podcasts. So check out Bryce's new podcast there.
Heck yeah.
Andrew drops a 2. Let's start a GoFundMe to buy out Trashbury. I think you're going to need, or Barry, excuse me. You're going to need a lot more money than $2. But hey, get
Maybe
it
just a
started.
bit.
Get it
That's true.
started. I do
We're
think, though,
starting there.
Josh, if they get Quinyon Mitchell in round 1, you have to get rid of James Bradbury this offseason. I firmly believe that. I know it's a $10 million cap hit, but the Eagles didn't use all their cap so far in 2024. What are you going to do? Are you going to sit Quinyon Mitchell for an entire year? You're going to redshirt him? What about Keely Ringo? What about the newly reinstated Isaiah Rodgers? Those are 3 very young, talented cornerbacks who need to see the football field. And I've said before in the show that, yeah, if James Bradbury can probably have a better year than he did in 2023 this season in 2024. I don't doubt that, but I think if you go corner in round 1, you need to ship James Bradbury away, and that way, 2 years from now, you have either Ringo and Rodgers on one side, Slay will be gone, and then either Mitchell or Arnold on the other side, and, you have a Lito Shepherd, Sheldon Brown type situation, hopefully for many years to come.
That is the ultimate ideal and goal. Yes, it's funny too because we haven't taken a corner in the first round since Lito Shepherd. So there's some similarities there. There's reasons in how you actually have dominant cornerback play versus not. But nonetheless, no, I'm with you. I actually referenced that on one of the shows whenever you tweeted about it. In fact, of saying like, hey, if you do this, James Bradbury likely moving on or trying to get space. Because again, to your point, like yes, there's a certain extent of, and you can throw this out there for any position, but certainly on the trenches, it makes more sense. But like with
Yeah.
Jalen Carter, even, hey, you know what? Rookie wall, he eventually hit it, right? But that happens with a lot of players, but you still want to get him out there. Now, rotationally, we believe in the rotational pass rush. It makes a lot of sense. But in the corner, in the way the cornerback market works and the way the cornerback play works, especially with Christian Parker as a DB coach, it's not like you don't say, hey, we got a stud here and he's coached Patrick Surtain from the beginning and being like, yep, you're going to automatically be our cornerback. Like we're our best option here and you're going to be phenomenal from day one. Like he can take that with a Quinyon Mitchell or a Terrion Arnold. And again, to your point, you don't hamstring, you don't handicap that player and say, well, I'm sorry, too bad. Unfortunately, we have this contract with JB, so it makes more financial sense to still try to milk it for all it's worth. You gotta move on. And whether that is maybe you fleece a team that is just ridiculously idiotic and thinks that maybe James Bradbury's returning to all pro level, that's great. But I think realistically, and what a lot of us have alluded to as well, is like, you see what you can get, and if you can't, you go ahead and cut bait. You just live with it, and you eat the dead money, because either way, you're going to have to. It'll be more sure this season, but even if you wait till next season, I mean, there's still going to be dead money that you're dealing with. So, but yeah, I totally agree. You invest in your corner, you get him on the field, you don't delay the development, and then you see how it turns out.
Andrew Nathan, I missed this one. He said earlier he wants number 22, 161, and a 2025 second for Mitchell at 12 or 13. Yes, but 12 in Denver will not take a 2025 second. It will take one of our 2 second-round draft picks. And it's kind of like a two-edged sword having 2 second-round draft picks, because teams know that. And they simply go, we don't want next year's second. We want one of your 2 second-round draft picks because you have 2. And so Denver doesn't have a second-round draft pick this year. They obviously need as many new players as humanly possible. And I see Denver being a trade option because they want Bo Nix maybe later on in the draft, but it would be 22, either 50 and 53 of this year, and then 161 to go up to 12 or 13. That seems to be the kind of consensus for the Eagles if they want to go ahead and move up. Ted E. has mentioned something that has not gotten any real reporting, Josh, but a lot of Twitter people are very high on this. He says, what's more likely, we trade for J.C. Horn, Marshawn Lattimore, or jump in the top 15 for cornerback? You guys think Edgerrin Cooper falls to us in round 2? We've seen the J.C. Horn trade stuff, the Marshawn Lattimore trade stuff as well. I would say it's more likely to go up and get a cornerback because he'd be on a rookie deal. It's the same reason why they could take a wide receiver in round 2. You have to pay these guys way, way sooner. I mean, Lattimore's 28 years old, and J.C. Horn is, year 2, year 3 in the league? His rookie contract is coming up pretty darn soon. He's been injured a lot. I'd much rather go up and get somebody that guarantees me 5 seasons on a rookie contract than trading for somebody that gives me 2 seasons on a rookie contract. I would go up instead of trade for those guys.
Totally agree. You couldn't have said it better. I'm right there with you on that. Yes, you've got all the control. And as we've seen with the market, I would just much rather have, especially the financial ramifications, if you're already going to have to eat dead money with James Bradbury, then let's just go ahead and say, no, we're going to be okay because we're offsetting that on a rookie contract that has more longevity. Whereas to your point, you do something else, you get a guy who's either costing you some to begin with or a guy that you got to re-up much quicker. I just say, hey, if we're talking about premier talent like a Quinyon Mitchell or Terry Arnold, then for sure. If it was a different option, you're saying, hey, you could do that, or you can take, let's just throw out a cornerback that's, kind of like a TJ Tampa or something. Then you're like, okay, yeah, that's more of an obvious. But this is a game-changing type of player that could be, I mean, very much. I don't think it's a stretch to say this at all, but you look at Terry Arnold or Quinyon Mitchell, like they have all pro potential. I know that's huge and not everybody makes all pro, but they without a doubt have that potential. Question is, can they get there? But I would rather risk it on that for sure than to your point. I mean, if you make those trades, you're kind of binding yourself a little bit, and you force also like, hey, this has to work because we're trading in that sense. We're giving up capital, and then it's also going to cost you more. So we'll see. I'm not with Zach Barter though, saying plot twist they don't go corner in round 1. That's
we'll
not
see.
buying it. Sorry, Zach.
We'll see.
Although Justin believes in Michigan.
So, go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, I was gonna say with I don't want to move on from Ted, so we could stick with Ted. Justin was the next one, but stick with Ted's for a second. The second part of that, the Edgerrin Cooper.
Yeah, quickly on Edgerrin Cooper, I don't think he falls to 50 or 53. I think if Philadelphia wants Edgerrin Cooper, they move up in round 2 to go ahead and get him. And Howie talked about that in his little John Clark piece on, I think it was either NBC or John Clark's podcast. Either way, he said, we're not dumb, but if we have somebody that we want, not just in round 1, but 2, 3, 4, we'll go up and get him. And if they want Edgerrin Cooper, I think we'll find out pretty soon, because I don't think Cooper gets kind of past the mid-40s, and waiting until 50 would be a real hold your breath and pray that he's actually going to be there. So I would bet that they'd have to go up to like 43 to get him just to make sure that they were able to go ahead and grab him, but we'll see.
Yeah, which it's weird because I'm in total agreement with you, but and again, this is like everyone knows this, but mock drafts are just mock drafts. That's all they are. There's no accuracy, or there's some, but there's no like for sure guarantee, and that's what makes draft night so awesome. But the fact that every single mock draft that I've done, he's available. Edgerrin Cooper is there at 50 and he's available there at 53. You start to go like, oh, maybe this is possible. But realistically, if I'm thinking about what's going to happen on draft night, I'm totally with you. There's just no way. There is absolutely no way in my mind that he sticks available until 50. You got to trade up into the mid 40s, maybe even early 40s if you want him. And so I don't know. It's kind of like, as much as a dream scenario would be get your Quinyon Mitchell, then get or Terran Arnold, and then get Edgerrin Cooper, it feels like if you're going to have to trade up and use some draft capital to move up in the first round, then it's less likely Edgerrin Cooper goes to the Eagles, because you're not going to probably trade up first round, trade up second round, and then you've gotten rid of a lot of draft picks there. So we'll see. That would be an awesome pick. Although again, what I was mentioning here a second ago, but Justin, appreciate the 10, dude, said love to shows. And that I found people who are also Eagles fans, but you're overthinking wide receiver 3 because the Eagles are going to get their Roman Empire in Roman Wilson in the second round. It's not a surprise because Justin is a big Michigan fan. No hate on Roman, but
Sure.
there's other receivers in my mind if I was going to pick receiver for the second round. But hey, Justin, there's option. I would say if you can't get, and I know this goes a little bit opposite of what he was bringing up, but we're sticking it with Michigan. So if you can't get Edgerrin Cooper, Junior Colson would be a really great option. So you get your Michigan guy, you get a linebacker, you don't have to go early. You don't have to trade up, most likely, to get a Junior Colson. So not the worst in terms of a consolation prize there. If you don't get Edgerrin Cooper, you still get a solid linebacker. And he's what, like 6'3", like 240, big, something like that. Big. So yeah, would add to the size factor, which we don't necessarily have, certainly from the current with Nakobe Dean.
Larry Rush says, there's a lot of talk about what the Eagles are going to do. We really don't know what they are going to do until tomorrow. There you go. Larry is correct. We have absolutely no idea. But,
that's the fun part, though. All the speculation.
Is it not?
All
that's
the
why we're going to be here live tomorrow night, probably 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on both of our channels for the entire round 1, which is going to take 5 hours. We're going to have a blast the entire time doing it. And if you're just joining us, we got a lot of fun stuff playing. We got a lot of new graphics. We got a lot of highlights and overlays and stuff that's going to make the show hopefully a lot more visually appealing as well. Almost, competing with ESPN in terms of making sure you're not missing stuff if you're watching our show versus the national broadcast. So be sure to check that out tomorrow night. I'm working really hard on that. Both of us have. It's going to be a bunch of fun. Do you have any predictions for the top of the draft here? Because the top of the draft will impact what Philadelphia does in terms of how far they need to come up if they want to get a Mitchell or an Arnold. There's a lot of smoke, and there's a lot of smoke that sounds very similar to Williams 1, Daniels 2, then the Patriots pick becomes the first wild card. Do they sit there and take Drake May, or do they try to go ahead and trade back and let a team like the Minnesota Vikings come up to get J.J. McCarthy? It's going to be fascinating to see what those two quarterbacks, McCarthy and May, command in terms of either the open trade market to go and get closer to the top of the draft, or if teams just want to sit still and take them at 3 and then wait and then take them at 6 with the New York Giants. I just cannot believe we've had this much smoke around this many quarterbacks. I heard Michael Penix might go in the top 15 earlier today. Bo Nix in the top 15, 6 in the top 30. It's gonna be a wild night with quarterbacks, especially early on tomorrow night.
Yeah, and it'll set the tone, like we said a number of times. Just depending on how many quarterbacks go early, then your night's going to be maybe better or worse. And so that's kind of the wait and see approach, I guess, for Howie and honestly, I mean, a lot of the teams that are in the teens and the early 20s and where you're going to trade up and see that. But I don't know. I mean, I've kind of gone back and forth on, it feels like I certainly think that you're going to have those first couple selections, obviously, like you mentioned, the quarterbacks, and then the Patriots, like you said too. I mean, they're the wild card. I don't feel like the Cardinals after that are going to move, because the report is like they've been asking for just crazy amounts to try to get anybody to move up there. So I think they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. It seems like too obvious a fit. You get a receiver for Kyler Murray. You just move on from that. And then where do the dominoes start falling? How quickly do you get the skill players going versus other teams that say, nope, we got to go up and get our quarterback? I don't know. I'll be really interested too, because even Minnesota's, they have 11 and 23, I think. Is that their picks?
I think so.
So, if they get a player at 11, or let's say that they do get their quarterback at 11, then it changes things. But if they don't and they're waiting, you could have some teams that are thinking, oh, hey, we want to trade to Philly. Like if your guys are going, all of a sudden your 22 becomes a lot more valuable, because teams might go, hey, well, Minnesota's about to take a quarterback here. They're at 23. Right. And then all of a sudden, maybe you do trade back. So it's very unlikely. In my mind, I'm saying, I don't know, 90% chance that it's a trade up and take your player. But if the draft starts getting kind of crap and you lose out on players that we were hoping to get, then I'm not totally ruling out the fact that you could trade back and get some pretty good compensation there, because you may have a couple teams that are trying to outbid Minnesota if they don't
Right.
get their quarterback early at 11. So it'll be interesting. I mean, that's the fascinating part about all this is no matter how many wish lists, Christmas lists we make, mock drafts we do, and speculation, it's never perfect, and you never know exactly how it's going to play out. But if I had to, I think if I had to guess, though, I would still say there's probably going to be there's four quarterbacks for sure. I'm going to say there's probably five quarterbacks that go within that top 15. And that's
Okay.
great news for the Eagles again, because you've
Very
got
good.
10 players outside of that are skill positions. But I don't know, just all the hype and everything else around the quarterback market has been a lot of talk. Maybe it was smoke and mirrors, and all of a sudden you're like, well, there's only two or three quarterbacks that went,
Sure.
and that's not so great. But I feel like it's going to be in that 5 range. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think 5 or 6. And then you also got to realize that you say you have 5 quarterbacks in the top 15. You're having at least 2 wide receivers, maybe 3 wide receivers in the top 15.
True. Yeah.
Maybe 3 offensive linemen. I mean, there's a lot of good tackles in this draft. They're calling it the offensive tackle draft. If you're unsure about this player or that player, offensive tackle is very, very likely. And that gets you, I mean, you could go 10 picks deep of just tackle, receiver, and quarterback in the first 10, and then Philadelphia sits at 22, or better yet, trades up, and they're getting, a top 3 defensive player, a top 5 defensive player. There are a lot of people that are very high on, Byron Murphy, the defensive tackle out of Texas. Latu, the pass rusher out of UCLA, who you and I both like. He has injury questions. Apparently teams are split 50-50 on that neck. He might be the best player in the entire draft if he didn't have injury concerns, and maybe he didn't play at such a small school like UCLA. And then you have the cornerbacks, then you have the pass rushers. Dallas Turner's name is hardly mentioned at all. He's just always mocked number 9 overall to the Atlanta Falcons. But if Turner falls past 9, who comes up to get maybe the other best pass rusher in this draft with no injury concerns from a bigger school like Alabama? Like, there are a lot of storylines here that are really going to have an impact on what the Eagles are planning on doing. And we've mentioned this before. The Eagles have their draft board, and they have their guy. And they have their number 1, their number 2, and their number 3. And they're leaving the first round with one of those 3 players. But they want that number 1 guy, whether it's Mitchell, Arnold, Murphy, Fatanu, whoever it is. And if they see them slide past that magic number of 12, that's when the green light starts to get lit and you start to go ahead and move up, because even if Denver stays put and takes a quarterback, that leaves the Raiders with maybe they take a quarterback. Maybe they want a Bo Nix if Michael Penix is gone at 12 or vice versa. It's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly what they're going to be able to do.
Yeah. I'm excited. I can't wait. I mean, this is like, we talk about it every single year. Certainly with last year doing the first time of live streaming together, but like it's just I remember because the Bijan thing, right? It was like Bijan or Jalen Carter, but Jalen Carter didn't seem like it was as reasonable. And then it's like, my gosh, are you serious? Like, Jalen Carter's still available. He's not taking it.
And Bijan went
get
first.
To 6. Yeah, and then Bijan goes, and you're like, okay, well, this is actually a better case scenario, because I had written it off as like Jalen Carter's not going to happen. And so, even though in my head I'm trying to not get too hyped up for a Quinyon Mitchell or Terry Arnold, at the same time, I could go back and say, even just as of a year ago, a player that I thought would be a home run, but also was unrealistic, was Jalen Carter. And yet he did fall all the way to 9, and the Eagles got him. So that's the hope, is at least, maybe he goes in that direction, or maybe one of those players can fall in that direction. It makes a ton of sense, like we talked about with Seattle at 16. But to your point, I mean, right about 12, it's realistic if Howie's just going to go ahead and, hey, let's move up now. Like, we're not waiting to 16, because yes, it works out for both sides with Seattle. But if you got a guy that you like, just because the mock draft simulator says that it works every time at 16 does not mean that it works in real life at 16. And so you might have to jump up ahead of the Colts at 15 or at 14 and go ahead and get your player. So that's what we're going to be watching, obviously, on draft night. The exciting thing to me too is if you get whoever we get in first round, right? Like, that kind of sets the precedent for the remainder of the draft. And even though it may only be one pick on the first night, we're gonna be live second night and get the next couple rounds. But if they get corner naturally, then all of a sudden I think that we'll be like, okay, we've got the corner settled. But are they going to go offense? They to get a playmaker in the second round, depending on who they traded. Did we get a pick in the third round? Did we lose one of those to move up? So there's just so many like dominoes that will fall as soon as that first trade gets made. But it's how he's going to be active. To your point, we're going to have it probably before like the actual networks do, because we're going to be following on Twitter too. So if you're going to be
Yep.
hanging out with us, you'll get to know at least a couple seconds, if not a little bit earlier than that, from everybody else. So it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Shout out to Mateo, who says, hey, guys, my daughter says, hola and go Birds. We're on our way to drop her off early at youth group, so I don't have to text and drive. Hey, that's smart. She loves you guys. Praise the Lord. We appreciate it, Mateo. And Mateo's daughter, have fun at youth group tonight.
Yeah.
And, of course, get ready for the draft tomorrow. I saw another one that I wanted to mention, and I'm blanking on where it was. Oh, the Trey Hendrickson questions. I've seen that a lot today. If you didn't see it, the 30-year-old or soon-to-be 30-year-old Bengal pass rusher Trey Hendrickson has demanded a trade from Cincinnati. Big loss for their defense. Really good player. Should the Eagles make a phone call? And sure, if he's cheap enough, but he's 30 years old. I'd much rather get a pass rusher at some point in this draft. They will, whether it's round 1, 2, 6, 7, whatever it is. But Hendrickson is the age-old question. Would you like to have a better player on your roster? The answer is yes. Do you think it's really possible? Probably not.
I agree. Yeah, because you're talking about the age factor. You just lost Reddick. So the optics of that, even, like, oh, wait, you're going to go spend on a pass rusher you weren't willing to keep, even though, sure, it may be not quite as much as you possibly would have had to give up, but it would have been a lot, and it's very close in that sense. So I agree. You call, he probably Howie called regardless, because he's just going to make sure and put feelers out there on just about everything. But to your point, it only makes sense if the financials are there, and I highly doubt it is, because you're in the situation currently with the pass rushers. Now, I think that you're going to get solidified more. You're going to get at least one more guy in the draft. But in terms of free agency, probably not as much sense there. But we'll see. But shout out to James Carver. Appreciate the 5. Says, from guns up to 2 Sickums. There you go. Texas Tech Red Raider to 2 Baylor Bears. Says, with penalties coming next year, do y'all see Howie trading back at some point for picks in 25? Best maybe round 1 for Kool-Aid.
The penalties coming next year are not going to be as severe. The fact the NFL did not levy anything for the Atlanta Falcon tampering, because it's so dumb, against Kirk Cousins, and obviously us with Saquon Barkley, this draft shows you that, at worst, I think you're going to see some fines for Philadelphia. Maybe they get, 5th or a 6th round draft pick taken away. Atlanta could be a little more severe. It sounds like it is, even though we don't know the details of why it would be more severe. Did they tamper harder or whatever? That could be an earlier round draft pick, but I don't think it's anything crazy. Historically, these aren't big time, violations. The Brady with the Dolphins violation was a 1st round draft pick, but that was like a 3-year deal from 2019 to 2022. They were tampering, which, again, what does that mean? Can I not call Brady on the phone and just ask him how his day's going, So, excuse me. Right. I don't see it being anything severe, so I wouldn't worry about that. But Howie does trade back, but he likes to trade back more in the middle of the draft. He's sitting there with a 4th rounder, and he moves back to the top of the 5th. Or, it's not normally in round 1. If you're sitting at 22 and there isn't a Quinyon Mitchell and there isn't a Tyrion Arnold, there still is a Cooper DeJean, who some people think is the most, not diverse, the most, what's the word? Versatile is the proper word, cornerback in this draft, who's able to be inside and outside and up and down and do everything you want somebody in that hybrid safety, cornerback, outside linebacker role. So, yeah, I just don't think that they're going to trade back, because there's enough quality 1st-round talent in this draft to get somebody and say put at 22.
Yeah. Diverse is actually not a bad word, considering the position he plays in the NFL. Corner, it offers more diversity than what you usually see there. But no, you're right. Versatility within a Vic Fangio defense. That's true. As unlikely as I think that it is, and I think a lot of people are in the same stance, it's not impossible. So if you're just sitting there and you haven't had a player that really fell the right spot to trade up, then you maybe just take him at 22. So it's worth a shot. But hey, there's again, it's all speculation. I see a bunch of different comments here as well. Robert is saying, glad you guys not drafting. Well, guess what? You know what? Even people that are drafting and the experts and the mock drafts and everything else, usually at best it's 50%. So, you can throw out your favorite option, the guy who you like, who's going to be a home run. And I'm sorry, but no one can prove to me that they've hit more than, 50, 60% of the time at absolute best. So this is the beauty of the draft, though, is you take your pick. And even times when, you might think so-and-so is a bust, hang on, be patient, because all of a sudden they can be a little bit better. And, you get right. I was going to say Brandon Graham. Sometimes it doesn't work out for the first season or 2, or even a little bit more than that. And all of a sudden they turn a corner. So let's just give it some time, but it is exciting. At least we are in a much better position then the Dallas Cowboys, we got to bring that up because, the contracts that are getting done, Detroit and the wide receiver situation.
Yeah.
We can get ours done, which is phenomenal. You get it done ahead of the market. You get Devontae Smith's contract. You get Jordan Mailata's. Now all of a sudden you see with what is it, Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown and their contracts kind of in a way just like, all right, well, that's the first domino that falls. But now these other guys that are going to be up for extensions are going to reset that and get higher contracts. And then you got Jerry Jones and a presser going, yeah, we kind of want to wait and see. We want to let the leaves fall a little bit more. It's like, are you serious? Because the translation on that is we just want to wait until the market gets even higher for a receiver before we try to, pay CeeDee Lamb or things like that. It's like, I just don't even understand. I do not understand, which I know that's the gift that keeps on giving of the Dallas Cowboys. But how great is, I know we've talked about it and everyone knows it, but it's just like, how great is Howie Roseman for getting these deals done, but also coming to the table because his negotiation, while also, hey, you know what, like proving to a player you're worth it, but also the negotiation and saying, let's make something happen now. Because if I was a player, if I was Devontae Smith, I wouldn't have been necessarily as eager because sure, look at the contracts that are getting done now. I know that I'm about to get a higher payment, or I could if I just sit tight, let the market take care of itself. It'll be good. But I think it's just on both sides, and that's the beauty of Howie there. But I got to say, I am pumped, especially seeing this. But what was your reaction? I mean, obviously seeing other contracts get done, especially within the NFC for Detroit's today.
Well, I mean, Howie can go to players and try to get them to sign early all he wants, but if the culture isn't right, if the player hasn't bought into Philadelphia, they're not going to do it. And I think it's the big difference right now between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm trying to be unbiased, despite 9 different Philadelphia Eagle memorabilia sitting behind me. But what I see right now is that Dallas Cowboy players, they aren't buying into the charade that is being a Dallas Cowboy anymore. It used to be, we're trying to win. We're going to try to win a Super Bowl. We're going to get back to the how about them Cowboys days. And the past 5 years have shown you the Cowboys are not interested in winning. I mean, they're interested in winning enough to make a lot of money and be the number 1 selling brand in the National Football League. But are they really that interested in going out and doing everything possible, truly being all in to win championships? I would say no. And I think the players see the exact same thing. And so if you're CeeDee Lamb, I'm not signing early with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to sign at the very latest because all they care about is money, so all I'm going to care about is money. Flip it over to Philadelphia. Smitty wants to be here. He loves the team that drafted him. He loves his quarterback. He loves his teammates. A.J. Brown is obviously one of his best friends possibly, and he thinks that they have a chance to win a Super Bowl because that's what Howie Roseman tries to do every single year, and I think it just goes to show how different the cultures are and how different Philadelphia is in general because the players buy into what they have. It's not always perfect. Nick Sirianni wasn't excellent last year. Players had some bad games the final 7-game stretch, but everybody in that locker room in Philadelphia truly believes Howie went all in this offseason to try to win a championship in 2024, and if you lose $3 or $4 extra million over the course of the next 5 years in your contract versus Amon-Ra St. Brown, are you really that upset if you win a Super Bowl and he doesn't? I think that's the big deciding factor when you look at what the Dallas Cowboys are doing and what the Eagles have done over the course of the past 3 months.
It's a fair point. Totally. Yeah. I think you've proven yourself too. Like you said, it's like it's not only like, okay, hey, you've got an example of you've played with the organization like Smitty has, but I think it's also, hey, I trust the GM and Smitty coming from an organization or a college career of Bama knows what it is to be a winner and be at the top or near the top, competing almost every single year. So it's like, there's already that in play, but hey, some players it matters and some it doesn't. And that's perfectly fine. If you get into the NFL and you're like, hey, I'm all about making a bag and I don't care if we win, we can be a bottom feeder team. Doesn't matter. That's fine. You know what? No big deal. If that's what you want to be. But for the players that want to be winners, it is important. And that's a great point that you bring up is, hey, you know what? We can continue to be there because I've got this GM that I trust and he's going to go make things happen versus like Jerry Jones and the Cowboys that we don't exactly I would never trust. I don't know as a Cowboys fan. I mean, you got all these friends that are texting, and they're like, and I may jab every once in a while too. It's like, hey, how's that all in thing working for you?
That's right.
Like you said they're going to be all in. Hasn't really turned into anything at this point.
I totally agree. Let's refresh people quickly on tomorrow night. So tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, probably 7:15. We haven't officially determined what time we're going to go live tomorrow night. Josh and I will be live before the draft, both of our channels. We're going to do the entire, first round, and obviously it's tilted towards the Eagles, but we're building the draft to look like, a real NFL draft show, to cover every single team and every single player and break down everything that's going on. And honestly, it's going to hopefully look a lot better. I've been working on a bunch of graphics. I want to try some of those really briefly here to make sure they look good when I rewatch this back on YouTube. I mean, we're going to have people in terms of the picks popping up on the screen, which you see right there, the timer on the clock letting us know, how much time is left before the pick is going to go ahead and be in. Down below, you're going to see what picks have been happening. If you're getting this, is also going to be happening tomorrow night. And then hopefully it all works out well to where when a pick is in, we're going to make the announcement like this.
Yeah.
And then we can make picks and announcements and even throw up some player highlights as well. So it's going to be a fun night tomorrow night. It's a quick little preview of what we've been working on. And, you can take whatever pick you want. There you go. Boom. The Washington Commanders are on the clock and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a bunch of fun tomorrow night. Hopefully you guys hang out with us and just enjoy the draft, because that's what we're going to try and do for 4.5, 5 hours. And you're going to have to wait a little bit for Philadelphia. You can't just check in for the first couple of draft picks and then leave because the Philadelphia Eagles pick at 22. Will they come up? You never know. That's the beauty of tomorrow night's live show. So be sure to go ahead and check us out.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, again, by the way, I got to just say, the graphics there, I know I mentioned earlier, unbelievable job. It's phenomenal. It's going to be so awesome, especially doing it draft night, the ticker on the bottom. It's just so professional. So I'm really excited just for that. But then, yeah, we add on all the other draft buzz and everything else there. It's going to be so awesome. I will say, too, the giveaways that we've mentioned, the draft league, there's so many things in play. So also, I mean, for people that are like, oh, I'm going to just swing in for the Eagles, to your point, like you're going to be missing out because, if you win and you're not present, that's fine. We'll send out a message on the community page, but it's always more fun, and I don't know, the odds say, I can't exactly prove this. The odds say if you're present during the drawing, it helps your percentages, on, but right? It's a randomized spinner. So I could be totally wrong, but yeah.
Brendan Walker says, I'm here for the neon sign. Yes, you are giving away not the exact one behind you, but one of those neon signs, which is heavily coveted by all of the comment section. They love that thing. That's being given away tomorrow.
It is the highest comment getter for sure on a giveaway, which was maybe not super surprising, but I was kind of thinking for a second, I was like, wow, this is getting a lot of interest. And I usually had, it felt like every live show, every stream during the games and stuff. Someone's like, hey, where'd you get the sign? And so I was like, there's really not a better situation during the draft night, all the hype, the build up, everything else. So you're right. We're going to give away one sign to someone. I said that we were going to give it away before I went and checked the price. And I'm not going to lie, it literally like doubled whenever I bought it. So, it's a lot more expensive because I said that. And then I went and checked because someone's like, hey, what? And I sent the link to someone too. And then they're like, bro, you paid that much. And I went and checked and I was like, oh my gosh, like that is, I think it's like, I want to say it's like 400 or something.
Woo!
I didn't pay that much. I paid like half. So, but I've already said I'm going to give it away now. So, hey, someone's going to win this thing. So good luck all.
There you go. Yep. We're also going to, of course, be doing the NFL Draft League. So if you have not Venmo Josh your entry to go ahead and get into that, make your picks. The winner gets a jersey. We're probably giving away 2 jerseys tomorrow night is my guess. And then I'm also doing one. I did one today for my comment section. It's not as expensive as a sign like you have behind you, but I'm giving away one of the Eagles official draft hats as well. If you've not watched my show today, you got to comment on that one. Yeah. So we're doing that as well. So lots of things going to happen tomorrow night. It's going to be a bunch of fun. And we should have some highlights as well. I got to try this out. So the first pick in the draft, I think we can all agree it's going to be Caleb Williams. And when that happens, then maybe it'll look something like this. There you go. We'll have highlights of Caleb Williams as he's drafted. It's going to be a bunch of fun. I can't make highlights for every single player just because you don't know if all of the people you think are going to go in the first round are going to go in the first round, but the main stars are going to have their own highlight tapes. We can talk about where they go and what kind of, excitement they bring to a team like the Chicago Bears. So, again, lots of fun tomorrow night. Just a little taste of how it's going to go, and I want to make sure it all worked tonight, too. That way it doesn't not work tomorrow. So, there's your little preview of how it's going to go. It's going to be a bunch of fun. James Carver says there's a neon sign shop in Terrell, Texas. It's Terrell, right? Terrell, Texas? How do you say that? I've never been to Terrell, Texas. Yep. Is that where you got the Eagles sign? It's not, right? You got it somewhere else.
No, I did not. It's self-sign, something like that. Yeah, I just found it online. So I was Googling for, just Eagles neon sign, and that's where it came up. So I got it shipped. Maybe I should have, because they might be able to make it cheaper, honestly, than what I've gotten it at this point. But yeah, just
Never
got it
know.
somewhere online. But by the way, got Justin's message here. So appreciate it, Justin. $5 into the NFL Draft League. Says love the show, keep it up. So I will send you
There
that
you
link
go.
here in just
Get
a
your
second.
picks
But
in. Get
you
your
were
picks
down.
in.
Let me actually double check. Is this okay? It's on Venmo. Good. I was gonna say Venmo allows me to message somebody, but Cash App, I've had a little bit of an issue. We've gotten it worked out. But if you do
Oh,
Cash App, if someone's watching this and they're going to Cash App, and then send me like your email, like
there
whether
you
it's
go.
comment section, email us something, because otherwise I've been like, cool, I got the funds, but I can't send you that link. So, but we figured it out for those that have Cash App so far. It's just been a little more difficult.
There you go. How do I enter the giveaway for the sign? Josh, how do they do it? Is it yesterday's show or the show before? Which show do they have to comment on?
It's yesterday's show, but also there's a link in the description right now for my
On
channel
Josh's
here
channel.
for
Yeah.
this live stream. Yeah, if you go down into the description box, it just says get in on the neon sign giveaway. You click on that and you go and enter in Go Birds. That's all you get to enter.
There you go.
So
There you go. And all this stuff you got to be sub for. Make sure you sub to both the channels. That way,
for sure.
it works out mutually beneficial, as they say. I'm seeing people mention Byron Murphy. I thought Byron Murphy would be the pick, the defensive tackle out of Texas, way, way, way early in the draft process. I've since gotten off of that. But, Fletcher Cox leaves, and Jordan Davis is still kind of a head scratcher. Is he, physically fit enough to last 17 games? Plus, Murphy's a great player. Is there any part of you that would see Howie trading up for a defensive tackle in this draft when he did it this past season?
No, please no. I mean, I shouldn't say no because of how much Howie values that position,
Sure,
but there's just
sure.
absolutely no way. Honestly, I think that we've talked about this a little bit, and I know I was talking about it with Anthony DeBona earlier on one of our recordings, but the only sense that would make to me is if it's actually like a trade back in a scenario where a Jerzon Newton, for example, from Illinois, just seems to slip, because early on, I mean, he was in every mock draft and every consideration seemed like a top 10, certainly top 15 player. And then as time's gone on, he's just continued to slowly fall, where it's like, he may be picked in the first round, maybe not. So if he's a guy who's fallen, you don't like your picks, your players that you wanted get taken early, and it gets to you at 22 and you're saying, you know what, this is not really a great option here, then that could be one where you trade back and then all of a sudden you have a late pick in the first round, and you just go ahead and say, hey, you know what, there's a lot of value here. Jerzon Newton's still available.
Sure.
Let's beef up the D line. But even in that situation, I'd go, really? We just took another interior defensive lineman in the first round? Like, come on, that we got to do something different. So hopefully not. But to your point, I mean, just because it's Howie, 5% chance. There's no way it's a trade up. I will say
low.
no way
low.
there's a trade up for interior defensive line, but 5% chance, if that, in the first round for interior D line. Who's the one guy? I think you already answered this one time. I can't remember now. Who's the one guy? Is there one specific player? I think we answered position. Sure. Is there one specific player that you don't want Howie drafting in the first round?
It's Brock Bowers. 100%. And
that's
it's
right.
So
you
funny
did. Okay.
There are so many people that want Brock Bowers in my comment section, and it just blows my mind. And again, the only argument they have is, well, Dallas Goedert's not here forever. And it's like, okay, but he's still going to be here for the next 2 years minimum, and he's a top 3 tight end in the National Football League. It would make no sense. It would make, unless there is a scenario where there is no DeJean, no Arnold, no Wiggins, no Mitchell, no Verse, no Dallas Turner, no Latu, probably no Chop Robinson. Like, if there's no defensive player left, and I mean, I'd take a wide receiver over I would take Brian Thomas. I'd take Xavier Worthy. All those guys are gone. Then sure, I would take Brock Bowers. But and I think there was a really good, graphic made by Hembo of Get Up this morning on ESPN showing that tight end, wide receiver, cornerback, I mean, those are all positions that rarely hit in the first round, but especially tight end. And in a team you don't need a tight end, why would you go out and get one with your first round draft pick? There's no way that they get him. There truly is no way. They're true leans.
I forget now that you said it. That I remembered. Yes, you have said Brock
Watch the
Bowers
comments,
before.
though. Watch
It's
people.
funny though.
You're going to see people say that I'm
yes.
wrong. You're going to see it.
Yeah, I've seen there have been more people than I assumed because I've gone through. I've even gone through your comment section as well because I was like, I'm interested because you made the one in particular. I know you talked about him a couple times, but you made the one specific that was alluding to Brock Bowers' video, and that is true. There's more. I assume because you're always going to get like a couple trolls. So sometimes if you see a few comments, it's like yeah whatever.
Sure.
But like I assume there might be a couple. But then it was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I get that there's some interest and yeah, we're the Philly dogs. So Georgia players get a little bit more hype probably too.
Sure.
And we love Georgia players. You're right there in the backyard, but like
hour and a half away.
It's not, it's not a position of luxury. That's not the justified gluttonous pick there of a tight end. That's just a like terrible situation, I guess. Cause you do need to eventually pick your tight end too for Goddard, but yeah, probably not that early. That'd be wild.
Austin Harris with the 5. He says, want to swing by and say I'm looking forward to tomorrow's stream. Those graphics look amazing. Good job. Appreciate that. Also been loving Josh's streams lately as well. Yes, if you want to talk Eagles, Josh has got enough streams for you during the week. You can jump in and hop in and chat Eagles whenever you want. So we appreciate that. Be sure to jump in tomorrow. We're going to have a bunch of fun tomorrow, and I cannot wait. Matthew Del Tufo says, I'm happy with any of the top cornerbacks. I think I am too. I mean, there's obviously a tier system. Quinyon and Tyrion Arnold are both the higher tier. But if you stay put at 22 and get DeJean, you get Wiggins. I mean, there are still plenty. I mean, even Khalil McKinstry there at 22. There are still plenty of very, very good cornerbacks in this draft. It's really a tackle, cornerback, and I guess you have to say wide receiver draft as well because there are so many great wide receivers and really quarterback because there are going to go 6 in the first round. There are a lot of really good players in a year where you think back to last season and it was very top heavy. Like the first 10 picks was like, here are the good players, and then they're all gone. This feels like you're going to get a good player even into the 20s, which is not normally, a normal thing. I mean, like last year, Dallas took Mozzie Smith in the middle of the 20s. He did nothing. We took Nolan Smith. I think he's going to be good this year, but he did nothing. Like a lot of those later first round guys did zero. I think you see a lot more impact players from 20 all the way to maybe 32.
Yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot to like, and that's why it's if you don't get your guy, I would prefer trade up, but if your guy's not there and not available, then if you trade back and have some more positions or some more flexibility there, it's not the worst spot to be in. I mean, we've seen in the early second round range, certainly in the mock drafts. I know it's a little bit different. It will probably shake out tomorrow night, but still like early second round range, there's a lot of value in that late second round, early third round range. Yeah. So yeah, if you acquire your picks, or even if it's one of the trade back scenarios, let's say you don't have to give up a second or you don't trade up in the first round, you made this point, I think on the last time that we recorded, but like, it doesn't seem like it'd be as realistic for Howie Roseman to take 2 picks in the second round, 3 picks apart. Like you might take a pick at 50, but then, hey, let's see if we could trade back from that spot. But that might be a perfect scenario because, again, there's a lot of value in that 70-ish to 120 range that you can get a bunch of different guys at a bunch of different spots. So it'll be exciting to see. I don't know. I think my bold prediction that I'm just going to go ahead and throw out there is that a receiver gets taken by the Eagles in the second round. I'm just going to say it. I think second round.
I'll believe it when I see it, but I mean, really, you could make the argument the Eagles are pretty loaded everywhere, and if you can get 2 second-round draft picks and one of them is a receiver and one's a linebacker, and you already got Tyrion Arnold at 16, I mean, you can be pretty excited about the potential there, or, with later-round draft pick as well. I think it's going to be a bunch of fun. Let's go ahead and get ready to wrap up here. We're going to be live for a long time tomorrow night, so we're not going to, burn the midnight oil on this stream right now. A couple more questions, a couple more super chats, and we'll wrap things up. James Carver says, if we truly want weapons, I'd say go for Bowers or Williams to be a 2-quarterback system for next year. Kidding, obviously. Yeah, okay, there you go. I was waiting for the kidding part there. But yes.
I was
let me
about
ask you
to
this.
say we've got another Bowers comment. I was like, wait, what? Okay, that's kidding. But yeah, at first I was like, see, to your point, we got Brock Bowers. But
if you had to take any quarterback in this draft not named Caleb Williams to start your franchise with, who would you be taking? GM Josh, who do you take?
Okay, so tough question. I'm gonna say Drake May.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. Not
Really?
Jaden Daniels. Yeah, I'm gonna say Drake May.
Okay.
So I could be, again, this is a total speculation. People get it all the wrong, but I did say, for what it's worth, I did say CJ Stroud would be better than Bryce Young. Now, obviously,
You
this is
did.
literally 1 year after.
You
So
did.
in terms of the overreaction, let's just wait for 3 or 4 more years. But last season, that's what I said. This year, I don't know. I feel like the ability that Drake May presents, not that Jaden Daniels does not have that because he's a weapon all over the place. But there's just something different about Drake May's game to me that uh, maybe a little bit more of a level of consistency, I suppose, in what you might expect or what you might get from him. I know that the natural inclination too is to, because of the similarity in the schools and all that, is like, oh, Sam Howell and Drake, but there's just differences between those. And so I think that, yeah, you could look back at numbers and say, well, it wasn't as glamorous as it could have been or whatever. You can
Yeah.
knock every single player, but to me, I slightly have it ahead of um, I understand, hey, Chicago's going to get Caleb Williams. I'm not a
Sure.
huge Caleb Williams
I'm
fan.
not
I get
either.
all the hype, I get all the potential, but I don't even know if I was looking at it just ranking wise, like on my big board, that I would say, hey, Caleb Williams is your top quarterback. Like I might even just say Drake May, give me his as QB1, and then you can adjust however you need to after that. But yeah, Chicago's going to take Caleb Williams. We already have that ready to go. But I think Drake May is where I would lean towards for quarterback.
Okay. I have something deep down in me that says Bo Nix is going to be a really good player, and I think it's because he's had the
Yeah.
adversity in college. He wasn't very good at Auburn. He goes to Oregon, and he just matures right in front of our eyes, and is a couple of throws away from beating a better Washington football team. I mean, Washington had all the weapons, and he didn't have as many at Oregon. And it just feels like if he can go somewhere a little bit later on in that first round to a more NFL ready football team, I think the Raiders, they could plug and play a good quarterback in there and be much better than they were with Aiden O'Connell. Denver needs a lot of pieces. The Commanders need a lot of pieces. There are a lot of teams that need pieces, but if you go a little bit later to like a Minnesota Vikings at 13, you get Justin Jefferson, you get their head coach, who obviously is an offensive genius. You can get a lot of really good young reps in there and maybe be a star. I like Penix as well. There's just something about it. Left-hand quarterbacks have never done anything for me. I mean, even Michael Vick was terrible at throwing until he came to Philadelphia. I know Penix is great at throwing the football, and I'm not saying I wouldn't take him because he's left-handed, but the injury history, I just can't buy into him as much as I can. Bo Nix just looks like he has no issues. I mean, Jaden Daniels, you're just praying he's the next Lamar Jackson and he doesn't get hurt. I mean, that's the whole idea with Jaden Daniels. You're praying he's
Mhm.
Lamar Jackson. Drake Mayfield, to me, it feels very Mitch Trubisky, where the Bears just completely wet their pants and trading up and taking him. I could be wrong. And Caleb Williams, there's a report today saying NFL teams are scared to death of him because they don't know what they're getting off the football field. They called him the prince of NFL quarterbacks, which is not a good
Yeah.
comparison because you don't know what he's going to do. I mean, he's kind of
No.
to put it in their words, a weird guy. And so Bo Nix, to me, is the one player in this draft in terms of quarterback who, not a weird guy. He's not undersized. He doesn't have, few starts under his belt. He's played through adversity. He's been on good teams, bad teams, and everything in between. I think he's going to be a very good football player. And if Denver wants to trade us number 12 to go back to 22 to get Bo Nix, then more power to him.
Yeah. Hey, that's I can totally. It's definitely a fair point. And also, I mean, if you're a believer, to your point of team, especially if they're a believer in Bo Nix, the other value of that is, I mean, for sure, this is not a stretch to say this, but for sure, Bo Nix doesn't have near as much value to begin with, so you don't even have to trade up as high to get
Yeah.
him. So it might be a double positive for a team who does want to go up and get him, but not have to say, hey, we got to get a top 3 pick to get Jaden Daniels, Drake May, or your Caleb Williams, who's a foregone conclusion for Chicago. But yeah, we'll see. It's always fascinating to me about every position, but I mean, like everyone knows, with quarterback, it is the wildest.
It's
We've
hard.
had it with Carson
It's
Wentz.
hard.
Like whenever we
Yes.
forfeited everything to go get him, it's like it's because, yes, it's a quarterback league. It's quarterback driven. Everything is predicated around that. And when you hit a home run on someone, you're golden, as Kansas City knows, as the Patriots know. Like you can get a dynasty set around a quarterback guy. But obviously, that's a dime a dozen, and then even way more after that, because it just doesn't happen like that. And so, as much as teams are able to give up to try to go get those quarterbacks, it's always fascinating to see who's willing to do so and which player they're actually to mortgage the farm for. But I don't know, man. There's a couple that seem more worth it, and others that are like, gosh, I know that it's so much hype, and I know that he's got lots of potential, and people saying, especially Caleb Williams, like he's the next. What was the exact wording? It was like he's the next Patrick Mahomes combined with, who was it? It was Patrick Mahomes combined with, was it Lamar Jackson maybe or something? It was like combined like both a super quarterbacks. Like the dude hasn't even played the NFL yet. We're going to compare him to two facets of like some of the best quarterbacks in the league. So, yeah, I don't know. I just, hopefully for him, I guess Chicago can turn out well, but the bar has been set so high and the standards have been set so high for him. It's like, he's destined to fail. Like, I don't know how you live up to that.
Yeah. All right, last super chat of the night is from Andrew. He says, please no more Philly dogs. I agree with the Brock Bowers situation. I don't mind other Georgia Bulldogs later on, but in the first round, there should be no Georgia players taken. That should be a streak that should end at 2 for the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of round 1 this past season. So we will see how that goes. All right, we're going to wrap it up here at the top of the hour, or at least the top of our hour on this show. Tomorrow night, don't be late. We're going to have a bunch of fun. We mentioned all the things that we're doing in terms of giving away a signing and hats and jerseys, and then obviously all the different stuff we're working on to make sure you guys have a great broadcast. We're going to get everything hopefully figured out tomorrow night in terms of where these players are going to go at this best time of the year. It's the most fun sporting event that isn't an actual sporting game, and I can't wait to do it with you, Josh. We're going to have a bunch of fun.
We're absolutely going to have a bunch of fun. I'm excited. I will leave you with this too, and I'm curious to get yours. Just the last final question or prediction.
Sure.
Who will and this is a total guessing game, because it's not only are they going to trade up or anything. Who do the Eagles take in the first round? You got to pick who they're going to go with. I'll go ahead and go first, so you can take just a little bit of time in case you need to think. But I'm going to go with Terran Arnold, even though I would prefer personally Quinyon Mitchell. Just the SEC biased, and Howie's talked about that before, being in a Power 5 conference and all that. I do think it's corner. I think he trades up, but I'm going to say Terran Arnold. So curious if you're the same or someone else.
I'm very similar. I think it's 51-49 Mitchell versus Arnold. I think Mitchell's the better prospect, but you mentioned how he's made this shift to being an SEC guy. I totally get that prediction right there. I will throw Jared Verse's name out as my second option. I think Jared Verse will be in play if they go to 12, and the entire corner thing has been a smokescreen because Isaiah Rodgers is coming back now. Maybe they believe in James Bradbury because they have to pay him. I think it's corner. I think it's Arnold. I think it's Mitchell, but I'll throw out Jared Verse's name. I think he's the other name that they're going to have to really decide to. And if it's not any of those, then we're getting a tackle and we're going to pretend like we're happy. So we're going to have fun tomorrow night.
Yes, we will have fun nonetheless. If it's a tackle, that'll be a little bit harder to try to smile through, but we'll still have a good time. So
there you go. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We'll see you guys tomorrow night, round 1 of the NFL draft. We'll be live for it. Can't wait for that one.
Go Birds.